Ladies and gentlemen, I am sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, excited for 2.4 Wuthering Waves live stream. And yes, I will be live. I'm gonna pop a couple of Advils like sensu beans, put a pad and some cream on my back, and we're gonna power through this bullshit I'm going through right now. But I wanted to explain to you guys why. Why am I excited about 2.4, as well as the foreseeable future of Wuthering Waves? First, I got my little notepad with me. I am the notepad god, and we have laid out all of our thoughts for every single patch update that has ever occurred with Wuthering Waves going back to 1.0. And as I walk you through these things, it'll start to make sense why I'm excited for 2.4 and so on. So, okay, I want to start off with the pros and cons of 1.0. I'm not going to do this for every single patch because 1.0 was more so the foundation, and then they would try to like build off of that with each patch, and then we kind of assessed it from there on out. But 1.0, it was fun as hell, okay? I remember I was insanely addicted to this game. Hell, M-Tash, the Gacha hater these days, he was insanely addicted to this game, right? Like everybody couldn't stop playing it. And it was just a fun experience despite all the flaws. Insane crashes. I crashed 87,000 times, and I was sponsored for 7 days to stream this game. Imagine me during a sponsorship constantly crashing. Not because it's my fault, but because buggering waves over here, bro. The voice acting, oh my God, bro. The voice acting was legit like borderline depressing. And I remember at the time, people were actually trying to defend it too. It was the most monotonous, piss poor direction in terms of reading dialogue and what that dialogue was saying versus how they were delivering it. It was so bad that I dare say people quit the game just for that alone. It's just because a lot of people do get into these games and they need the story to convince them to continue playing. But if you're playing the story and the voice acting is just, it's like, nah, I'm good, you know? So that was a big problem. And I think maybe even people underlooked just how bad it really was. A number of characters, nobody knew anything about them. To this day, sometimes we still don't know something about some of these characters. You know, it was unpolished. Wuthering Waves was at its peak in terms of like the name when the game first launched, which to be fair, a lot of games these days, they drop incomplete, and a lot of loose ends still need to be tied up. So, you know, that is something that's worth mentioning, but it's not an excuse, nor should it be an exception just because, you know, other games do it too. These companies, man, they need to get their shit together with polish. The dialogue bloat and pacing was just another Yapfest Gacha game. This is absolutely true. So like, not only was the voice acting monotonous and god awful, the dialogue bloat in the beginning of Wuwa was dog water. It was just like, it was interesting from a world building perspective, getting to know the sentinels of the world, the new jargons to unveil, which were quite interesting, such as the tacit fields, the Wuthering Waves, or frequency and overclocking. These things were interesting, but the way they was like teaching it to you was just like, again, another yap fest. The music, oh man, this was a big one. The music was so ass, especially when you take in the context of how many kudo bots from PGR were like, oh man, just wait on the music, man, just wait on the music. We get over to the music, bro, you're like, is this the music they were talking about? Okay, I mean, I guess, you know, it was really more so the exploration. The exploration music, it was just too depressing. It was that doom, doom, boom, ba-doom. And like, so as I'm listening these off, you'll start to see like why the 1.0 experience was a bit of a shit show. The map terrain was a nightmare to explore for various objectives. Yeah, so this was before they put in the QOL where you could tell whether like a teleporter was either up like on top or below, because they did have a lot of terrain. You know, I can't think of the word doesn't come to my mind. It's a word to describe being up high or being down low. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? That was a real problem because you were trying to get to certain side quests, objectives, and like completionist exploration, and it was just a nightmare. I remember one time it took me 45 fucking minutes just to find one teleporter, and in the map would like put the teleporter in a particular area, but to actually get to it, you had to go to bumfuck Egypt, you know? So it was a lot of that was a problem. But despite all of that, boys, there were a lot of very, very strong pros that set up Wuthering Waves foundation. The first one was the exploration was actually incredible despite me listening to all that. Why? The new ecosystem. Everybody was so excited about Pokemon inside of a gacha game that was a Genshin Impact competitor trying to do what they do better. And this was one of those systems that was like so enticing to me, to pretty much everybody. And getting to catch them, but they didn't make it like easy in the beginning. You kind of had to like increase the chance of them even spawning. These type of things, as I'm like thinking of it, I think of Etheria Restart. Etheria Restart, they don't make the progression system easy. They don't make it to where like, oh, just brain dead. Yeah, here's your gear. Here's your shit. Like, just log on, do it, get off. No, you actually have to like develop teams that are tailored to the particular modes. And then you might get your cheeks clapped. You might have to do a bit of testing and figuring out just to get your gear, like just to get the gear to level up your characters. That's a challenge. I think developers often at times overlook that as an actual fun thing to do for a lot of players. Because if you give it too easy, then it's kind of like gets out of the realms of a balance and it's just kind of a boring experience. And so I realized in the beginning, this was fun, and then until it wasn't. But in the beginning, before it wasn't, it was really fun, if you know what I'm saying. Because after a while, we was like, all right, bro, I need y'all to guarantee this shit because I'm tired of them not spawning. That was after you got through all the exploration. At some point, you eventually said, okay, this is what I got left to get. And it's just a fucking shit show trying to get them. The beginning of it, so fun. Getting to learn what the echoes do. Convincing yourself that the devs were actually going to give you a very intricate system to where you could use different echoes to build different teams and how they would function. And then you come up later on down the line, you know, just one or two echoes and the rest of them is ass. That was a big part of you never getting burnt out with exploration because that was a huge motivating factor. You got to catch them all. Got to catch them all. Moving on. Gameplay and combat. Literal peak. Especially coming if you came from Genshin Impact. I don't even know how people still argue this. They amplified the combat experience in honestly every manner possible except one, the elemental system. That's it. Elemental system is still dog water to this day, but the new mechs to learn and digest, my God, was that fun to unveil. The perfect dodge system, the parry system, the aggression, even before holograms, because you were learning all these things, the aggression of the normal mobs was even fun to go up against. It wasn't just brain dead. Like fighting the first hologram for the very first time, that shit was so fun. And that was what made it a bit of a difference. The interactiveness of the enemies was a bit more aggressive. Not crazy, but enough to make it fun. But learning the Forte circuit, learning the Concerto meter, learning intro and outro and how they can affect team development and rotations, all of that was so goddamn fun, right? World building was decent. Like I said, the Sentinels, Tacit Fields, Frequency, Overclock, Wuthering Waves, that kept you enough on the hook to say, okay, we can work with this over time. With different patches, we can polish this up. Character design was exceptional. Kung Fu Panda is still one of my favorite designs of all time in gacha gaming. Hologram fights held it the fuck down on what to look forward to and motivation innovative. Yeah, it's like the hologram fights, although to this day, Wuthering Waves has one of the worst end games I've ever seen. The hologram fights are still one of the most innovative and exciting elements I've ever seen in the gacha space. And that making its presence with the launch of the game was huge. I dare say it was a massive factor too. And a lot of people who want that challenge, who want to practice, to stick around. And I think the PGR players probably like that too. TOA, I think for me personally, was a bit of a shit show. I don't think a lot of people really enjoyed it in the beginning because it was more so I'm under geared as opposed to something new. It was actually kind of that repetitive quality in my personal appearance, but opinion. But taking all that into consideration, this was like the foundation of Wuthering Waves. This was the 1.0 experience, roughly, I would say. And from here, you kind of were hooked in. When we take into consideration the devs' speedy feedback, they were immediately on it with all these nightmare things that were occurring, giving out free characters, giving out free currency, constantly communicating, constantly listening. All of that considered, that was the 1.0 experience. And overall, I dare say it was a very good experience, all things considered. Then moving into 1.1, as you're of the mind frame of, okay, what are they going to do with this foundation? How are they going to improve upon this? We now have something to build off of. And then here comes 1.1, Chang Li and Gen Z. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that a lot of the cons I mentioned still kind of remain. The dialogue bloat was still kind of the music was still depressing, the map terrain was still kind of it was still a bit unpolished. A number of characters were still like, who the fuck is that? But they started to remedy a number of things, like honestly, one patch at a time. The insane crashes, that was completely gone. The voice acting was still kind of booty cheeks with some people, but better with others. You started to see a little bit of improvements here in 1.1, but you still didn't get that, ooh, this game is gonna change everything feeling. And so 1.1, although decent, I kind of enjoyed Chang Li's story. Gen Z's story was, again, some dialogue bloat, but good presentation. Wuwa, from the beginning, all things considered, they always had a bit of a better presentation experience, and it was that Unreal Engine graphic quality, moving the angles around a bit more, and then obviously the cutscenes too were just, I think, a notch above what we had experienced before this. So 1.1 wasn't too bad. It was pretty solid. Still a little bit of a honeymoon phase. 1.2 was you know, like some people say that 1.2 is the worst patch of all of Wuthering Waves. In fact, it's so forgettable. The one thing I can remember is the cool thing, the saving grace, was we got Xiang Liao, a free 5-star character. And obviously that kind of set everyone ablaze. But apart from Xiang Liao, there was no MSQ. And the event was like, I don't know, running around town and constantly talking. It was a very like repetitive, tedious like event that you would just, it was a waste of time. I'm gonna be honest. There was very little things apart from the free Xiang Liao that was quite enjoyable. Jeje, you know, I don't really know how to explain it, man. I loved Jeje's launch. Like the thing is though, there wasn't really any important variables of Jeje's presence that really pertain to what was happening in Wuthering Waves. There was no like impact, no, because the MSQ wasn't there. So if you did her companion quest, I don't think there was anything much to offer there. It was just more so like, oh, she's so cute, she's so adorable. All right, anyways, move on. Right, that was 1.2. There was really nothing much to my recollection that set it apart from everything else. I can't even remember a single redeeming quality of 1.2 outside of the free Xiang Liao. And then we go into 1.3, where the devs prove that they were able to build upon things that we were kind of like doubting. Story-wise, this is where the game made its first impact. 1.3. Also, keep in mind, as I'm going through these patches, they were constantly nipping away at things that were annoying, like map terrain that got remedied, fixed, knocked it out of the bud. They started slowly but surely implementing in things we needed. There was more music added in with this patch too, with the Shorekeeper. But the biggest impact was that they proved that they could improve on story delivery. The dialogue bloat faded away in 1.3. Tremendously, not entirely, but tremendously. The setting up the pacing of how they're going to deliver you a story experience in terms of unveiling who the new character is was increased drastically. And this is where we started to gain that confidence again on what Kudo could potentially deliver us in terms of a story. A lot of people, even taking in present time, still consider Shorekeeper as their favorite part of all of Wuthering Waves, which is a nice thing, you know, and that kind of is a big statement as well as a testament to just how impactful and how important this patch was to the longevity and, you know, people's continuance of playing the game. How that was, it was nice. And then after this comes in 1.4. I'm gonna be real, I think 1.4 was mid as fuck. It was hard carried by Camellia because Camellia had such an intriguing character, not only development, but who she was, period, because of the early unveil of who she was in the very beginning of Wuthering Waves. She popped up looking all fine and cute and stuff, and the Gacha community said, I'm gonna come. Yeah. So when she came out, they kind of already did their job gassing her up, but then they didn't let you down with who she was and what her like whole entire personality was. But outside of like Camellia, I don't think patch 1.4 was anything groundbreaking either, in my personal opinion. I think it was hard carried by her in particular. And to be fair, it's never really a good thing when the character you're trying to sell to people is the only real impactful and redeeming quality of your patch. Don't get me wrong, hologram fights at this point were still very enjoyable, but the voice acting was still very monotonous. The pacing of the story and the dialogue bloat was still kind of ass. And most importantly, there wasn't nothing really innovative that they were doing to build off of the foundation. And so a lot of the sentiments in the air for a number of players in the community, not everyone, there were a lot of people who were still enjoying it, but a massive part of that market capture was starting to wonder if this was the full potential of Wuthering Waves. And if it was, maybe they would move on, or maybe they would just treat the game in a very lackluster manner, which would still be a bad look for the game. And so the last thing on the hook at this point was really so looking forward to 2.0. That was keeping a lot of players on the hook, and it was like the deciding factor of whether they would continue playing it or move on. This is really when it dawned on me the severity and significance of a impactful story, whether it be through presentation or whether it be through dialogue consumption. It's very important that you deliver an exceptional story when you're playing an open world gacha game that's limited by the gacha dynamic. I legit had an epiphany at 1.4. I was like, now I see why story is so important in these kind of gacha games, because they don't have a good replayable loop. Their end game can only be a certain degree of end game due to the other things they're trying to do from monetary incentives. They have to deliver on that story. Everything like proceeds swimmingly with story or dies and drowns in the swim and in the water if the story is booty cheeks, you know? And I've come to see that in 2.0 and onward. And we're gonna now step into that realm. When 2.0 came out, as we all know, and I still coin it as potentially the greatest gacha patch of all time, because what happened with 2.0 is all the things I mentioned. In fact, let's go ahead and pull this back up. All the things I mentioned con-wise were evaporated. They cleaned the clock with 2.0. Insane crashes, gone. Voice acting was god awful, turned in to god tier. You know what I mean? Damn Brits came in the freaking pockets of Tencent with their insane amount of networking. I think 2.0, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 2.0 was when they partnered up with Tencent, I believe. The amount of value that immediately was shown by how the characters were not only talking, but how the dialogue was being presented and how it immediately evaporated in terms of dialogue bloat. The world building, beautiful. The progression and pacing, beautiful. The flight mechanism knocked everybody's shoes off, bro. Like the flight mechanism, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know it would impact my experience playing this game in the manner that it did. It was the literal definition of gamers. This changes everything. Like it was the monumental, this changes everything element, bro. And so that came in with 2.0, but then you also got to meet a lot of different characters that were in Renacida, and the way that they introduced them and unveiled their personalities was par for the course. It wasn't just like, who the fuck is this? No, not only did they introduce the character, I remember this so perfectly well, they would show you the role of the character while simultaneously in continuance with the story's progression. Beautifully done. 2.0 like knocked everything out of the park. There was no question mark characters apart from the ones that are still question mark, like Calcharo. Bugs were always present, but they were like first world problem bugs. Like, that's annoying, but who cares? Dialogue bloat was taken care of. Music, oh my God. A lot of people in this space, not just this space, the gaming industry, they don't put enough respect on music. Music was another one that like made that impact of 2.0 feel so much more potent. Like the music was diverse and it was so fitting to the atmosphere. And like, bro, every time I remember I was just sitting there like, God damn, I don't even want to do nothing. I just want to listen to this. The one-time experience, the first impression of 2.0, I mean, bro, I dare say not only did it retain every person who was playing the game, but it probably echoed so loud throughout the community that it grabbed a lot of people who probably weren't even trying to play Wuthering Waves, or they quit them or something. You know, like it was crazy. It was insane. Y'all know it. It was the literal cinema meme and all that. And so 2.0 put back confidence into the hearts of the players that Kudo Games did know how to evolve. They were here to stay. They were here to expand. Most importantly, it was done way faster than their main competitor, Hoyoverse. 1.4 straight into 2.0. Dude, that's crazy. Because, I mean, you look at the other games, they go up to 1.7. You know, that's 3 more patches of stalling and mid-ass, drawn out dialogue and so on and so forth. And this is a variable I want to bring up when we get into 2.4, because that's kind of what I want to talk to you about, why I'm so excited about 2.4. But before we do, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's continue on in the methodical approach of reviewing each individual patch. 2.1. The best way to sum it up is if you liked fishing, it was God tier. If you didn't like fishing, that shit was a filler patch and it was ass, okay? Even the like little side areas to explore and what happened there, that was ass. But the fishing, if you liked it, amazing patch. But let's face it, I dare say a lot of people that didn't have friends to just chat with probably thought that shit was ass. And this was when I started to see the pattern. And I'll be real, I expected 2.1 to kind of be like that due to 2.0 being so unbelievably insane. In fact, you could probably find me saying this on stream somewhere, on video, in a podcast. I was like, it's okay. 2.0 was so god tier, they get a pass. 2.2 comes. I loved 2.2 strictly, once again, because of the continuance of the world building of what they set up with 2.0, and then the story presentation, as well as the pacing of it was exceptional. How they delivered it in terms of dialogue consumption, and I guess the methodical approach too, because things kind of were all over the place, and then they saved a big part of the significant factors of the story to like after you were done with everything, and then they just like, what do you call it? Expedition dump. That's the word I was looking for. They just dumped that shit on you when you were talking to the Sentinel in that little realm. So many important things, almost as if they had to rush to get the story out to you. That was my real criticism of 2.2. But apart from that, it was comparable to like 2.0's impact in terms of a story deliverance. And once again, like I said, when they do good on that, it also introduces more of the world building, more of the like new aspects, more of that one-time experience that feels like you're playing the game for the first time again. They did a great job. And so I kept track of that. I said 2.0, best patch of all time. 1.1, filler. 2.2, solid. 2.3. I gotta laugh at it, bro, because it's funny as hell, man. It's like easily in comparison with 1.2 of 1.0. It's like debatably the worst patch of all time. There's so many good things about it though. Like the second half of Zani's companion quest was genuinely really freaking good. The new hologram fights are some of the most goated hologram fights. I think they literally transformed the excitement of a hologram fight. Some people might say Hakati is still like their favorite, but I thought fighting Fleur de Lis, man, bro, I love that fight so much. She's just so fucking cool, and her move, like Arsenal, it's great. I don't need to go into too much detail. I think the hologram fight's really strong, and the one QB Derby event where you get to use the abilities of people, but in a little cube, I guess, Minecraft form, enjoyable, but quickly diminished in enjoyment if you kept logging on to play it every day. It was like, it's something to do. Apart from that, everything else was, I mean, dude, just like delete it out the game is how I felt about it, you know? And I'm not gonna speak for everybody else, but I mean, this patch has been a load of garbage to like, I'm putting it nicely, actually. It was a load of garbage. I still haven't done Elusive Realm, and I know that shit is mid, which is, I know if I played it, I probably go on the meanest tangent of all time. The reason I'm saying this like ahead of time is because nobody is going crazy about it. If it was such a good patch, I'd see it on Twitter. I'd see it blowing up whether I wanted to see it or not. Bro, I see nothing. Like, it's like it changed nothing, gamers. You know? So I'm just like, bro, that must mean it's ass. And that's why I still ain't played it. I've been stalling. Now, I did hear Shakana's story was also pretty solid, but these are like companion quests, and they're not MSQ, and they're not going to change the progression of the game and the feel of the game and the confidence of the player the way a MSQ will. And so once again, we're back into another filler patch, and the anniversary landed on this patch that was also debatably one of the worst patches. So now I can talk to you about why I'm excited for 2.4. Because if you look at that trend there, they're always consistently dropping mid patches, followed by banger patches, followed by mid patches. And so we know 2.4, just from that argument there alone, is going to be a banger patch. But then we got even more compelling evidence. And we know what that compelling evidence is. That's Carthethia combined with Fleur de Lis in that leak that they showed from the gameplay. But as I said earlier, we should not allow a character to make a patch. If our only thing we're looking forward to is just a character that they're trying to sell to you, that is a problem. That is not a good thing, okay? It's not healthy. And so why are we still looking forward to 2.4? Because you can tell the MSQ is going to be a culmination of everything we've been experiencing and building up in 2.0 leading to 2.4, right? The Cantarella story with the false sentinel and Carlotta and their role with the false sentinel, and then that like kind of getting remedied and repaired, but still a little bit of evil gets out of there as usual. We still got to face the red people. I can't think of the jargon right now. And then the church with Fenrico and all of that unveiling. And now we're going to come back into that. It's like everything they've been doing is now going to come to a culmination and a climactical experience in 2.4. And get this, we take about 1.0 going into 1.4. What happened after that? We went straight to 2.0. And if we take what the freaking CEO, Salon, I think his name's Salon, said, every 6 months, they're trying to deliver you a 3.0 experience. I mean, a whole new like update comparable to 2.0, which means 3.0 is coming right after 1.4. So they have to tie everything in like now or never. That's like it has to happen now. And so when you take in the filler patch and then you take in the consistency of banger filler, you take in the consistency of Fleur de Lis's impact on the story, and now she's going to be the character they're really trying to sell you and pull all the stops out for. Everything is pointing to banger. Everything is. There's like, it is impossible. I'm not even like in any capacity unsure. I know for a fact 2.4 is going to be insane because of all those arrows pointing in that direction. And get this, because 2.4 is the last patch, at least I think, I don't think there's going to be a 2.5. Then that means we're getting 2 banger patches back to back. We're getting 2.4, that's gonna be a banger, and then we're getting 3.0, that's gonna be a banger. That was a small, like, you know, little chance that maybe we get a 1.5, that would be crazy. But I'm pretty sure we're getting 3.0 right after 2.4, which would break the mid banger consistency. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for the live stream because I'm like, yo, finally, we getting 2 banger patches back to back, bro. That's how it should be. It should be banger, 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 mid, banger, 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 mid, not banger, mid, bro. This is insane. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up, boys. Holy, that Advil kicked in, man. I don't even need to be raising my voice and getting this damn crunk, bro. But goddamn, shit gonna start tingling like Spider-Man again. You guys comment down below. Sorry if I yapped your ears off. I thought it was important to like take a trip down memory lane, take a look at all of the the elements of each individual patch, the pros, the cons, and how this game has been progressing, and you'd have a bit of a more like whole picture as to my thought process. Peace, love, and happiness. I'll catch you guys on the flip side.